Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year.
Let's move on to Denver. We talked about him a lot last year. Obviously a new situation. Sean Payton takes over there. They come out of the gates right away, onside kick. All is looking good with the Denver Broncos to a degree midway through that game. And they lose. I mean, we talked about it off air. What are your expectations, Rich, about this new marriage between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton going 0-1 in week one?
Soon as it happened, Mitchell, as soon as that onside kick happened and they had success and then the penalty negated it, I text Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth and I said, that's going to be symbolic of this game. Because it looked like it was going to work, Mitchell, and then it didn't. It looked like it happened, and then it didn't. And not that Russell played bad. Russell didn't play bad at all. They ran the ball well. Javonte Williams looked really good. You can't argue that. Samaje Perine looked like, they looked like a great 1-2 punch. They were, I think Samaje Perine averaged 5 yards a carry. Javonte Williams averaged 4.1, and Russ was really efficient. He was 27 for 34, but for only 177 yards. That's when it starts to get concerning, Mitchell. It's like, all right, 27 for 34. You're expecting at least 200 yards. At least 200 yards. You got to give me 200 yards. But when you're only averaging 4.6 yards per pass, per completion, Mitchell, you're not going to win a lot of ball games like that. That's what the game of the game, and that's Russell Wilson's game, and that's been his game. So that's where you say, hey, you can see Sean Payton working on Russ, and Russ kind of, the marriage. You can see where it's coming together really well. There were some passes in there where you're like, man, Russ hit his back foot, got the ball out, hit his back foot, making really fast decisions, being really efficient with the football. But then you say, well, what makes Russ special? You're like, the uncharacteristic off-schedule plays, the bombs. Russell Wilson is good for at least one bomb a game, one 50-yarder, 45-yard bomb, whether it's a post, a go route, something, or a deep over, heading to the other side of the field. And you just didn't see those. And you're like, was it the offensive line that was holding it back? Or was it the fear of, because Las Vegas, they have Max Crosby, and he's a really good pass rusher, but they don't have a ton of pass rush, so you're not thinking he's getting pressured. Then you're like, hey, maybe it's the receivers, but he was making it work with the receivers he had. And then Jimmy G, Mitchell. Jimmy G and Josh McDaniels are a match made for each other. They did well in New England when Jimmy G had to play, when Tom got hurt. And Jimmy G played really well, and he's still playing really well within this scheme. And this time he has Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, and they both played really well. He was connecting with Jacoby Myers for 2 touchdowns, all the crucial third down. You got to give all the credit in the world to the guy on the other side. Patrick Surtain was strapping. He was strapping. And I'm sure Devontae would say the same. It was no luck. It was no, hey, he's holding. He was doing this. He was playing off. Footwork was great. He was following left, right. There were times they were running zone and Devontae would go inside and you can't just make up your own coverage, Patrick Surtain, and you can't just go in there when it's zone coverage and you don't have to. That's not your assignment. But anytime he could line up across from him, he did, and he played really well. But still, Devontae had 6 catches for 66 yards. Devontae Adams is going to continue to be Devontae Adams, obviously, but with Jimmy G and his efficiency, Jimmy G is an efficient quarterback, and I know he threw the interception in the red zone. He was trying to give his team a chance. It was doing too much. Kareem Jackson made an amazing play. Ball got tipped in the air. Without that, it would have been a great game for Jimmy G. Max Crosby doing what he does, got a sack. But my concern is that last year, one thing that Denver could hang their hats on was their defense. They could hang their hats on it, Mitchell. They won a 10-11 ball game against the San Francisco 49ers early in the season, Mitchell. They had a couple 10-9 ball games and things like that where they held the team to under 10 points and under 15 points and things like that. And right now, the Raiders weren't expected to do a ton. The Raiders aren't the Chargers and their offense. You know, Justin Herbert, we just watched what they did with Justin Herbert and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. And, you know, they're going to give them problems. And then you saw the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have Travis Kelce for that game. And so that's where you're concerned, is that defense that they've been able to rely on so heavily in the past isn't showing up in the way that they're used to. And I don't know what the problem is right there. They did a great job stopping the run, but there were some big plays to be had out there, and Jimmy G had them. And the next week, the Broncos play the Commanders, who were coming off a win, and they looked sloppy in that game, so they could potentially get a win there. But the Raiders are playing the Bills, and that's going to be a wake-up call.
Well, that's the thing too, Rich. I mean, the Broncos coming into the season, it's new season. Let's put last season behind us, right? I mean, there's more hope in Denver this year. You know, new coaching staff. You know, hoping that they can figure out this whole Russell Wilson situation. And then you start this game out. The Raiders were regarded as, I don't want to put them bottom of the barrel of the league, but certainly lower tiered than most. I mean, below average team in the NFL. They come out, they beat you on your home turf. If they go out and lose to the Washington Commanders next week, I mean, Richard, this could be last year all over again. And I don't want to pile on to Russ by any means. Like you said, he had an efficient game to a degree. He didn't take many shots downfield. But, like, at what point does the Denver fan base just give up on the guy? Like, it could get ugly quick, Rich, if they don't get to winning. And that's the big thing. Winning cures all. They got to get to winning quick.
They have to. And the thing that makes this sting a little bit more is it's a division game that you lost at home to what most people would consider the worst team in your division. And so if you lose your first game to what people think is the worst team in your division, clearly they're not. They won this game. And they look a lot better than they did last year. Josh Jacobs is back, but he'll have to get more touches and get more in sync. But it's a lot of concern. You know, they have to go into to that Washington game very focused because it could get real bad. It could get, Sean Payton is going to have to answer some uncomfortable questions if they don't find a way to win that game in Washington. But there's still hope right now. There's still hope. I mean, the offense looked really good at times. They moved the ball really efficiently. They got away with some things. And, some of the plays got negated. There was a long pass interference on a long ball to Sutton. That could have been a big play, but it looked a little overthrown. But it was a pass interference, and those don't count against the receiving yards. So, for all intents and purposes, it was a solid game for Russell, and hopefully he can build on that. But it's just uncharacteristic not to see him take shots down the field and at least have one or two of those big plays. But Mitchell, there was a shootout in L.A.
Was there ever, Rich? And we got something fun this week for you guys. We got a brand new segment to introduce, brought to you by our friends at Morgan & Morgan. It's the Making It Look Easy segment this week, Rich. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. This week, Richard, Tua made it look real easy out there, going 28 for 45, throwing for 466 and 3 tutties. I did not stutter, Rich. That was not 2 games. That was one singular game. 466 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Dolphins. Your thoughts on Tua's performance today?
Mitchell, there was something said because they asked Tua, and these kids try their best not to make it personal and not to get into like the nuances of these rivalries and personal player against player stuff. So Tua tried to stay away from the Tua Herbert comparisons. There was so much whispering and yelling sometimes about how the Miami Dolphins should have picked Justin Herbert and how they regret not picking Justin Herbert, how Tua wasn't the guy. And you know what Tua did, Mitchell? He got on the field with him and he doubled him up, Mitchell. And what do I mean by double him up? He doubled up his stats, Mitchell. Justin Herbert played a pretty good game, 23 for 33 for 228 and a touchdown. But that's not 466, Mitchell. That is not 466. That is not 3 touchdowns, Mitchell. And Tua and Tyreek were out there playing backyard. Tyreek went for 215. 215 yards. Brandon Staley is supposed to be a defensive mastermind. He's not one of these offensive coaches where you're like, hey, they're going to score a lot of points. That's why they hired Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore did a great job. They scored 34 points. They moved the ball. Eckler played well. Joshua Kelly played well. But you looked up and you're like, wait, they have all this talent on the Chargers defense. You talk about Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. You talk about J.C. Jackson. There is so much talent. Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, the All-Pro, one of the best safeties in the National Football League. All this talent, and you just can't seem to stop people. 466 yards, and that is just passing the football. Mitchell, over 500 yards of offense against a really talented defense. So then you start to question, is it the scheme? Like, what are they doing with this talent? Why can't they put these guys in position to be successful year after year? Every year you hear about how great this defense should be on paper. And they should be, because there's so much talent. J.C. Jackson. And then you think, in this game in particular, J.C. Jackson had a costly mistake right before the half, just a blunder where he pushes the receiver on a play, gets a PI, and they get a lucky 3 points right before the half, and they lose by 2. So I know in the film room they're going to be talking about that. And J.C. Jackson gets an interception in the game, had some really good plays, but that's a play you can't have. And I'm just baffled right now by this Chargers defense. I don't know why. I don't know why they're giving up so many points. Tua's a really great player. Tyreek's a great player, but you can double people, Mitchell. It's the National Football League. You find a way to get people stopped. At least one guy. If it's just one guy killing you, Mitchell, you can find the answers for him. You double him, you bracket him. Shoot, with your boy Calvin, they used to put vice on him, like punt return vice, whatever it takes to get the guy stopped. But you don't let a guy go for 215.
They got weapons out there in Miami, Rich. They got a lot of them. And shout out to Tua, recipient of our Making It Look Easy nominee, I guess, of the week, brought to you by Morgan & Morgan.
If you're ever injured, go to forthepeople.com/Sherman or dial pound. That's 529 on your cell phone to check out America's largest injury law firm. Winning in the NFL is hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. But Mitchell, he was making it look too easy, and nobody else had more than 4 catches, so they got to figure that out.
They do. Rich, I have to say this. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead in the podcast, but I got a good feeling the Miami Dolphins are going to squeeze their way into the top 5 of your power ranks because, by God, you go on the road week 1. The LA Chargers are a good team, Rich. Let's not just dismiss them because this LA Charger team, for one time in the last year plus, is fully healthy. I mean, I know Mike Williams got hit pretty hard over the middle there, but they are fully healthy, and they played a pretty darn good game. Miami Dolphins go on the road week 1. Huge performance out of Tua. Huge performance out of Tyreek. They got weapons all over the field. Once they get the running back core healthy, I'm speaking from Mitch Eisenstein personally. The Dolphins, you might have picked the wrong team in the AFC East, Rich. I got a sneaky suspicion this Dolphin team is going to be messing around for a while.
They'll be messing around, Mitchell, but the Jets have a defense that can play, Mitchell. They have people that actually stop people. We could talk about the 2 games that Tyreek played against Sauce Gardner, Sauce and Reed. You know what I mean? We don't want to talk about them having a lead versus Sauce and Reed. We don't want to talk about what they can achieve when they play Sauce and Reed, but whatever, Mitchell. I'm not going to go there.